Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. This week I actually make my very first diorama. So this month, the month of February 2021, I decided to participate in the Encounter Terrain competition. Now, if you aren't familiar with Encounter Terrain, you can find him on YouTube, Instagram, or just at his website, encounterterrain.com. And he does a monthly competition where there's a theme to each competition. Now, the rules is that it must fit in a 10 by 10 centimeter base. And the theme of this month was Almost There. And when I saw this theme, I was kind of instantly inspired to make what I made. I don't really know why. I know that I was looking at pictures of old lumberjacks because I was trying to look at tree textures from a long time ago. I don't even know why. But ultimately, I did kind of settle on this particular diorama and this idea. Again, this is my first diorama I've ever made. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you enjoy. I was going to be doing this project with air dry clay. So the first thing I did was I took 2 empty rolls of label printer that I got from a job I worked at, and I super glued them together to create the structure of the tree. This was my first time ever using this kind of clay, so it was kind of a new learning experience for me, but using a structure on the inside of clay makes a really huge difference. The next thing was to roll out the clay, and I did this on a ceramic tile that I was able to obtain, and I used an empty bottle of kombucha that I repurposed. You don't need any fancy tools for this, just something to roll it out. You could use any kind of bottle really, but this glass bottle worked really well. So I got that rolled out, and I got it measured to the size of the tube that I had made. I actually rolled the texture in here with a file that I found online for a texture roller. I 3D printed it and just kind of made the tree texture. This wasn't necessary at this point because once you actually put it on the roller and start handling it, you start to lose some of that texture and you have to re-roll it anyway. As I said, the theme of this competition was Almost There. So this tree was going to be almost cut all the way down. So I kind of removed the part that was all chopped away from the tree. I then took some PVA glue and coated the entire tree structure and smoothed it over with a brush. This air dry clay is not tacky really at all, so it wouldn't just cling to this tube on its own, and it needed a little bit of help. And this glue was plenty sufficient enough to hold it on there so I could keep working. From here, it was just a matter of placing it on the pre-textured clay and then rolling it up like a nice burrito. And I then trimmed off all of the excess that overhung on the sides, and then I also trimmed the overlap on the edge of it like so here to make sure I could smooth it down and not have an extra big kind of lump there going down the length of the tree. I then removed the previously cut out section of the tree and would be filling that in later with foam. Because I manhandled it with my grubby nerd hands, I had to, like I said before, re-add the texture with the roller on here, and then I actually set it aside to dry so my grubby hands would not continue to eliminate the texture that this roller would apply. Because the tube of this tree is completely hollow, I needed to add some more material on the inside of it so I could work some more, sculpt some more of the interior of the tree for the chopped down part and the top side. So I made a little circle jig for my hot wire cutter, and I cut some long cylindrical tubes out of the foam here so I could kind of slide them down inside, as you'll see here in a minute. This would also serve to kind of build a bit more strength to the overall model, especially down at the bottom side where I removed a lot of material for the chopped part of the tree. That part was pretty flimsy and wanted to bend a lot, and by adding this foam down there, I was able to kind of shore it up a bit so it wouldn't bend as much. And it also served to work for when I attached it to the base that I had prepared for this. After I got those inserted on the bottom and the top, I took some bonsai wire. Actually, this is used to train bonsai trees, and I used it to kind of make some armatures for a simple root system at the bottom. This helped me kind of place it on the base and kind of position it how I wanted, and also served again as little armatures to again put some more of that air dry clay over. And I honestly just kind of twisted these up until they worked out. There's no real technique happening here, just getting a good structure for the roots. And then I just made 4 of these actually in total, and then just kind of got some excess wire here so I could poke it up into the foam and it could just kind of stick there temporarily so I could position it on the base. And the base that I opted to use was actually just a piece of chopped wood that I found at Hobby Lobby. It turned out to be the exact right size for this project. Had to sit on a 10 by 10 centimeter base, and this fits right inside of 10 by 10 centimeters. Right here I felt like the tree needed to be slightly taller up from the bottom of the roots, so I just cut another little circle to bring it up almost just a 1/4 inch, and then hot glued that to the bottom of the roots, and that was kind of what I was left with. After I got the roots positioned in the way I wanted to, I got it placed on the base and then traced it with a circle and drew a bunch of cross lines to find the center, so I could then insert a dowel and attach it nice and firmly to the base. This was done just by drilling a simple hole into the base and into the bottom of the tree, and then cutting a dowel to be the exact right size that it wouldn't interfere with the opening of the tree as well. I just used a razor knife to cut out that opening, and then made sure that I measured the dowel to be the right size so you wouldn't see it coming up into the chopped opening of the bottom of the tree here. And then with some PVA glue, I inserted the dowel into the top and bottom of the tree and the base. In order to make a chopped looking texture on the inside of the chopped part of the tree, I rolled out some more air dry clay, cut a circle with a tube, and I kind of flattened it out and placed it on the bottom and top part of the chopped open part there. These were also attached with some PVA glue, and then in order to create a texture with it, I did end up using a clay sculpting tool, for one, to attach it seamlessly, but also to create kind of a hatchet or axe, I guess, texture on the inside there. The top of it also got covered as well. Using some hot glue, I attached the tree to the base more firmly, just all around. I kind of got crazy with it and just put it everywhere it needed to be. At this point, I don't actually show it, but the tree was still a little bit, it wanted to fold in on itself on that opening, so I ended up taking 2 long like skewers, like almost like toothpick thickness, and I stuck them up there on the back side so they wouldn't be revealed on the opening of the tree at the bottom. I then started to sculpt the root system, and I did that with some more air dry clay. I used a clay sculpting tool to kind of attach to the base and shape it overall, and then textured it again with that roller where it could reach. And where it couldn't reach, I just used the clay sculpting tool to add texture there. To kind of strengthen again the back side of this so it wouldn't fold, I did add a couple more roots without any kind of wire armature under them, with just straight clay, and this seemed to make a really big difference. And then lastly, I just filled in those small gaps at the bottom underneath the base of the tree in between the roots with some more clay. These didn't get textured, they just got smushed into place because they're going to be covered by the ground cover. For the ground cover, I used Sculpt mold, and I just kind of created a nice mound around the base of the tree, covering up the bottom parts of the roots where they touch the base, and I made sure to leave a somewhat flat spot where a miniature would be standing, the little Lumberjack. And this was very straightforward, just made sure I covered the entire base, didn't cover up the roots too much, but made them look like they were embedded into the ground. After everything dried, it was time to paint, and I just painted the ground cover in brown because I was going to be covering it with my dirt mixture. Painting the bottom brown just ensures that in case you don't get really great coverage with the dirt, It won't show white through the bottom. The entire overall look of this tree was inspired by some photos I had taken of some trees on the Appalachian Trail here in the United States in Georgia. And I mixed some browns and grays and tans to come up with this color as kind of like the base undertone for the entire tree. A lot more colors would be applied over this, like you'll see in a minute, but this is kind of like the overall look that I was going for. The part of the tree that was chopped was obviously going to be a much lighter color on the inside, exposing fresh tree that's not covered in bark. And this was done with just a light brown color mixed with some tan, and just kind of found the color I was looking for. And then began dry brushing the tree, and I gradually just started taking that same brown color and making it a little bit lighter and lighter, because honestly, trees aren't traditionally just super brown. They have a lot of grays and other colors that are mixed in there, so I did a number of colors here. I wanted this tree to look like it was growing in a very wet forest, so I then started to dry brush it with a light green color to kind of feign a very light, thin moss kind of growing over the entire tree before actually applying a chunky moss on top of it. I dry brushed over the chopped part of the tree with parchment from Folk Art, which is my favorite color to dry brush with, just to lighten it up so it didn't look really orange and brownish, just a lot more fresh looking wood. It was at this point I decided to do the wash before I continued on with more dry brushing. I wanted to make sure that I was capturing a lot of that detail and you could see a lot of the bark texture. And then I didn't want it to dry and look glossy, so that's why I opted to do this at this step as opposed to at the end, and then dry brush over it to, again, have a more matte looking finish to the tree. As opposed to using the black and brown wash on the inside of the tree that's cut, I decided to do just a lighter, watered down brown wash. Using a yellow ochre, it's a very orangey yellow, I then dry brushed kind of sporadically over the entire tree as well, because not all moss is just green. In fact, a lot of it has a lot of yellows and oranges mixed into it, and I wanted to make sure that that was being related here on this tree. And make sure that I also was getting it on the roots as well. Because I hadn't really done a complete full coverage of dry brushing over the tree, I went and took a lighter brown color again and went and filled in the spaces where the yellow wasn't. The purpose being to eliminate any kind of really glossy looking parts of the tree and going for a more matte finish. Then using some PVA glue, I coated the earth ground part entirely so I could pour some dirt over the top of it and create a nice looking foresty floor. A new technique I used on this tree was adding lichen, the appearance of lichen on it. So I got a really watered down green color, and then I used a brush and just kind of flicked it all over it, creating tiny little spots everywhere. If you look at trees, especially trees that, well, actually most trees, but especially ones that grow in wet climates, they are covered in lichen of all kinds of colors. So I made sure I got good coverage of this all over the tree. I did it in a light green and a light gray, colors that again I got from that reference photo that I had taken. Once the PVA glue had dried with the dirt on it, I took a really watered down Mod Podge and dripped it all over the dirt to seal it and make it hard so it wouldn't just kind of dust off from use and touching it while I continued on with the build. In order to coat the entire base of this forest floor, I wanted to make sure that it looked very rich and alive. So I took these wire paper twist ties and I spray painted one side a dark green and the other side a light green. And I clipped them all with fingernail clippers down to 1 inch and some down to 1.25 inches. I was going to be clumping these together and I wanted to have different lengths. Now, I saw somebody do this on YouTube a long time ago and I can't remember who it was. So if anybody does remember who posted this first, please comment down below with who they were so they have proper credit, because this is an incredible way to make these ferns. So then you take the clippers and you kind of round off a little point at the top, and then you just cut really closely on the edges, being careful not to cut the wire, just the paper. And then I took an X-Acto knife and I cut down the stems at the bottom, and then you're left with a little tiny leaf that you can bend and manipulate in any shape that you want. It's really an awesome way to create some nice looking ferns, some big ones too. To get the leaves to kind of ruffle out a little bit, I dragged my fingernail across them, pinched them, twisted them a little bit, just to kind of get a little bit more individuality between each of the cuts. I then started bending them and shaping them into the positions that I wanted them to be. And I did this by poking a little hole in some foam and then just kind of bending them and sticking them in like this. And then I took a drop of super glue and some accelerant to really kind of hold them all together into a nice looking little fern. And then I did a little bit lighter green dry brush on top of these to bring out some of that definition in those little tiny cuts we made with the toenail clippers. Continuing on with the vegetation on the tree and the base, I took some PVA glue and just started painting it in some very strategic places where I felt like moss would grow. I would just apply a little bit of glue here and there, and then I would take a mixture of flocking, some fine turf flocking, and I did it in a green and a kind of a lighter green, and mix them together and then just kind of put them on top and then patted them off, and then you're left with some nice moss coverage. I then wanted a thicker layer of moss, so what I did was I took some PVA glue again, put it on there, and then I mixed some coarse turf together, same colors, and put them on for some more chunky looking moss to kind of be clinging off the side of it. This did a really good job of creating a lot of depth and texture to the overall look. If you're interested in any of the materials that I use in this project, I will list some links down below where you can find them on Amazon. Those are affiliate links, just so you know. They do help me out a little bit, but mostly it's just free to you to find the same kind of materials that I use in my projects. When I first started doing this hobby, I actually bought a static grass applicator very early on, thinking that I'd be using it constantly. And I used it once just to test it out, and I hadn't used it since. So I really wanted to justify the purchase, and so I added a bunch of more PVA glue on here and kind of patches, and then I used my static grass applicator to apply some longer bladed grass on the base of this, which I'm really happy with the turnout and the result. And then added a few flowers as to not overwhelm the entire piece. And then I drilled small holes into the base to add the ferns that I had made. And by drill, I mean I poked a hole first, and then I used my drill just to ensure that I could get them in deep enough and that they'd be nice and secure. And this was the first time ever doing something like this. Again, there's a lot of firsts for this project, and I'm really happy with the way everything turned out. It was really fun to kind of be a part of this competition and just to kind of work outside of my comfort zone and do something a little bit different. In some of the dry leaves that I bought from Green Stuff World, there's a bunch of these smaller little bits on the inside, and I wanted these to kind of just look like extra ground cover down here, some more dried looking stuff for a bit more variety. Everything's not going to look super alive all the time because things die, they dry out, and they fall off. So I wanted to cover the bottom here a little bit with some clumps of those as well. On this project, I even went so far as to make a bunch of like chopped up bits of wood that would, have been chopped from the tree and kind of spread them all over the base, but I didn't like how they looked, so I didn't include them. But next, it was time to paint my mini, and I'm not a great painter, so I'm not going to show a lot about how I did this, but I did create this little mini customized on Hero Forge in the position that I wanted him. And I thought he turned out pretty great. He's a cute little lumberjack man, and I think he worked out perfectly. And once I actually got him applied to the tree, it really, really all came together in just a single moment. It was so cool. But yeah, that's the end of the project, to be honest with you. I have a bunch of glamour shots here at the end for you to look at to see the detail of everything. And yeah, I was very pleased with how this turned out. It was a really fun competition to participate in. It got me inspired and had me do a few things that I hadn't done before and work with materials that I haven't worked with before, and I really enjoyed it. I wanted to take a quick minute just before we roll the footage of the glamour shots
I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who subscribed to me recently. I have reached 1,000 subscribers, which is kind of a big milestone. I never thought that I'd make that many, and I'm super stoked that I did. So thank you so much. Please like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications. It really helps my videos get out there and more people to kind of find the content that I'm making. If you do find value in this content and you know anyone that you think might as well, please share it with them. And you can also follow me over on Instagram. I keep forgetting to plug my Instagram, so here it is. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video, and I hope you enjoy this last bit of footage of the glamorous close-ups.